All right, we got flywheel bolts in now. Time to get the transmission into the car. Welcome back to another episode of Import Modify. All right, so per instructions, Loctite on the threads, lubricant on the head of the bolt, and torque it down in crisscross pattern to 95 foot-pounds. It's 19 millimeter, 12 point for the heads of these bolts. Front crankshaft bolt is 27 millimeter, and what we got to do and make sure we do before we put the flywheel on is you always want to include this plate. I think it's called an intermediate plate or a spacer plate, one or the other. I forget the name of this, but let's see which way, like this. So I got the front ratchet on the crank right there, and I got it in between, braced up against the bracket right there, so it's in place. It'll hold itself, and that'll allow me to get this torque down properly. So let's go ahead and do it. Okay, so I was looking at the condition of the pilot bearing, and this one is in really great shape. I don't really see a need for us to remove it. They did provide one in the kit, but I was comparing the two, and I really don't see a need to do it. So y'all can burn me in the comments if you want. I'm moving on. So we have the alignment tool for the friction disc right here, and basically we're going to go ahead and set that onto the crank, and then we'll install the pressure plate over it. And then at that point, we will torque these 12 millimeter bolts down to 25 foot-pounds. Let's go ahead and do it. All right, so clutch and flywheel is now installed on the engine. We got 95 foot-pounds on the bolts for the flywheel, 25 foot-pounds for the bolts on the pressure plate. I did rotate the crankshaft off camera and double check my torque specs up top because it was a little hard to get to, clearance issues. And also I did have to loosen the pressure plate up at one time and knock this pin centered for the hole because it wasn't lined correctly and it was binding. So got past all that, we're good to go. Alignment tool is now out, and we'll move on to the throwout bearing. I'm going to get all this out. I'm going to paint the clutch fork and reinstall a new bearing with anti-seize right here. Some people use bearing grease or whatnot. I like to use anti-seize. That's what I'm going to lubricate the sliding portion of the throwout bearing with. And then after that, I'll take the shifter off, and then we'll get a jack under it and see how tight it's going to be. I did read some articles from people that done this type of swap on these chassis, and they say it's a really tight fit in the tunnel. So hopefully we can manage it and make it work, but if not, we may have to adjust plans and drop the cross member just to lower the engine enough to get it to all made up. I don't know yet. Let's just go ahead and move on with the progress and see when we get there. All right, so on this fork right here, there's usually a clip that holds it onto a pivot. There it is. This is the clip I was referring to. You have to separate them to get off of the edge of the ball. Basically it. All right, so here's the replacement throwout bearing, and as you can see, comparing them side by side, there's a little bit difference. This one appears to be a little bit bigger, this has to be pressed out. We got to keep this body piece. So what I found was a 30mm socket will fit in between right there, and also a 36mm would allow me to fit right there to press it on. And I set things up over here with the press using jigs that were supplied with the kit, and I'm going to go ahead and press the old one out, press the new one in. Alright, so it's not going to work out this way. The bell housing is interfering with the tunnel. So, thinking about the situation, I'm probably going to put the engine hoist on the engine, loosen the mounts. We'll take the bolts out, tilt the engine down, and then that'll allow me to get the clearance that I need to bolt it in. And then once it's in, I can jack the transmission up and have it held in place, and then put the bolts back in on the mounts, and it should work out, hopefully, theoretically. Let's cross our fingers. So let's try it out. All right, so I've been thinking about this, came across an issue. I took the base mounts out to give me more room, but now I'm interfering with the oil pan and the little sump in the back, so I can't get the angle that I need to be able to get the bell housing to clear. So the back of the engine is rested up against the firewall right there, so I'm kind of out of room and I can't get enough angle on it. So what I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take one of these bolts out right here for the cross member, and I'm gonna go to the hardware store and I'm gonna get one that's a lot longer and use that, replace them with the longer ones, and then I can loosen the nuts up and drop the cross member down while everything's still connected, right? Drop the cross member down, which will drop the engine down, which will allow me to stab it, because once the bell housing clears and is bolted up to the engine, then it ought to be out of the way to clear everything else. Yeah, this is the only way I think I could get the thing to fit, because right there you can see, I mean, it's already up against the tunnel, and I don't have any more room to go, and it's quite off. Looking at the top of the clutch to where the bell housing is, it's off. So it's the only choice I think that I have. So I'll see you guys after I get the hardware. All right, so this is what I came up with. I found some H22 head bolts, and they're the same diameter, 12mm. So it'll work out just fine. They're a lot longer. And what I plan to do is put them in, replace them with these, and put these in so that I can lower the cross member, get it at an angle to where I could stab that transmission But once I bolt it back up, I'm going to swap the bolts out for the factory ones again. But as you can see, get my light, it gives me quite a bit of thread that's poking out that I can drop it down, and then I'm hoping at that point I can angle it and be able to stab it. So well, I like what I'm seeing so far. The plates are flexing and it's starting to drop down. Let's see how much I can get out of it. Oh, come on. Oh. There we go. Alright, so this is what it took in order for me to stab that transmission into the engine. I did have to angle it quite a bit more than I thought, and basically the way that I achieved that was I left a nut on this bolt right here, and then I removed the one totally from the rear, and that allowed me to get the room I needed to stab it. And now that it's stabbed, what I like to do, just to make sure that nothing's binding, is after I have it in there, I like to rotate the engine, and that moves nice and easy. And you can also tell whenever you're stabbing it if something's binding. I like to leave the transmission in gear, and then that way I could rotate the output shaft, and that'll turn the input shaft in case the splines don't line up. So it's stabbed 100%. It's good to go. It's not binding. So let me go back under the car real quick. All right, so I took the liberty and put the transmission mount on, and this is the kit mount. And I was able to locate the bolts for the tunnel. And for this transmission mount, these bolts are 10 by 1.25. So I found those. Good to go. So now it's up to me to jack this in combination with jacking up on the cross member and the hoist, and getting things lined up perfect so that I can tighten it down once and for all and not have to undo it for a while, hopefully. So yeah, it's a little involved to put a transmission in an RB25 transmission in a Z32. That's what you're up against. Alright, so the engine and transmission has now made it into the chassis. One thing I don't really like what I'm seeing on this RB25 transmission is it doesn't come back far enough. It's up there, and it looks like if I was to use this transmission, I would have to cut into the body to make room. And I'm also curious about the space I would have shifting, especially first, third, and fifth. So I need to check and see how that's gonna work out. You know, that you can use the bell housing on the RB25s and mount them up to the Z32 transmission, and then this would be factory all the way back. And I thought the fitment would be a lot better than what it is. And once I load the car down, I'll show you guys inside the car. But we got proper clearance with the bell housing, and it was just the input shaft that was limiting my space in getting it up, and this part right here was interfering with the tunnel. So that's the reason I had to get such an aggressive angle out of it in order to stab it, is because, yeah, sure, you got plenty of clearance now, but it's because the transmission has made it in and it's further up. But trying to stab it and getting clearance on that input shaft puts this back into the tunnel. So it was a little bit of a hurdle, I'm not gonna lie. I had to work for it a little bit, but I got it done. And now I'm just like, damn. So I do have, I do fortunately have a Z32 transmission right here with the whole shifter assembly and everything. So I know there's I know that the bell housing bolts onto this, and I was looking for my drive shaft and I can't find that. I have to locate that. I don't even know if I had one, honestly, but I don't know. What do you guys think? It just I don't know, man. It's right. I don't know if I'm gonna be a fan of that. I just don't think I'm gonna be a fan of that. Well, y'all, I don't know what I'm gonna do at this point. I'm kind of leaning towards getting the Z32 transmission and doing the bell housing swap and going that route. I honestly think that would probably be the easier, better thing for me to do. But the where it's gonna place it in the engine bay, because I was trying to get as much room up front as I can, and I'm wondering, with the RB25 bell housing on the Z32 transmission, will it push it up a lot further up? I don't know. I guess I need to reference some photos and stuff and see if I can get any idea of that, or if any of you guys have done a swap like this. Let me know on that. This is the part about builds I hate. Yeah, look at that. Look at where the shifter is. I'm not too keen on that. Alright, y'all, so I have a choice to make. Z32 transmission modified with the RB25 bell housing, or stick with the RB25 setup. I don't know yet. I just need to do a little bit more research and make my decision, but that's yet to be seen. I'll figure it out till the next episode, guys. You have a good day or night. Yo, peace out.